I have received a few requests regarding the creation of combinations, and I would like to use this video to create a universal jam combination. Have fun with it. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to write in the comments. We are starting here with a relatively empty performance. This is my template performance. I only have a drum set here in timbre 16, as you can see. It runs over the drum track as a click. Hopefully that should running out through outputs 1 and 2. I'll just leave that in now. I haven't started Logic, which means you're only hearing the sound through the microphone, but I think that's enough to show this. So we just start and choose a piano engine for the first slot. Of course, you can take whatever you want. Since we have taken a piano from the piano engine, we do not need any additional insert effects because they are already included in the piano engine. The first thing I simply do now is just click up here on the right, click on right combination, make it clear, and basically name it jam. Let's save this jam combo here under 126 because I don't have anything else and don't need it. I would leave the piano over the entire keyboard for now. That can always be useful. As a second sound, I would set it to 100 and take a string instrument. Strings can always be used well for everything. I would now take an ensemble string, specifically the stereo strings. They can handle pair effects. Now I select channel 2 here. Then I can see that this is IC14. Click on copy effects at the top right. I have selected programs and then go here under internal C. 14. Stereo strings. I take all used. Makes more sense in this case. I will copy that. There is already one. I just see. What is he doing there? Let's delete that. For this, I go in here, click on cut, fix, done. Now again on copy insert all used, I can send this one to ifix1. What he is doing is pulling the effects that are in the program into it. I just accidentally set them up. I'm now inserting them into the insert. Now the effect, the strings are there. However, they are very loud. I would make them a bit quieter now. Then I would go into the MIDI filters, and for the foot pedal that I have, the volume pedal, I would remove the piano engine because I don't want to be able to lower its volume. I can fade the stereo strings in and out if I want to. What is always good for such a setup is, of course, an E-piano. I am a fan of the Mod 7. No wonder with the programs, even though it's a Kronos 2, I have taken the banks from the Kronos 1 because I programmed everything there and simply copied it over 1-to-1, and I can do without the Berlin Grand. Now I mute the first two. Now let's see what effects exist and where they come from. We can see here that the sound definitely needs effects. So let's remember this here as well. A55 internally. Click here on copy. Go to A55. All used. Set to 4 because it's free. Switch this here to 4. And now we have... We can add the acoustic piano, the strings. I would say that the modification is actually a bit too quiet. Now it is a little better. Then an organ can still be very useful. You can take whatever you want. Everyone can, of course, choose their favorite. I have programmed a rock organ, and it definitely needs effects. I will show how to use the effects in another video. So, we then go to 5. Why he did that now is a good question. I don't know. We just have to take a look here to see what happened. Is it there? Yes, there is still an effect that has landed in between, and we will cut it now. Well, it is very loud. I know that too. What we could also use, which is always cool, is a synth sound. I will use the German sound because it fits so well. It's also very loud. It can be made a bit quieter. It also needs effects. Pressed nonsense, sorry. Copy, insert. The next one is all used up. So let's go to 6, which is obviously wrong. Let's set it to 9 for now. You could also add more here, like a pad, for example. This adjustment is temporary and can be revisited later if needed. Additionally, consider the possibility of incorporating other elements to enhance the overall setup. I have the ability to activate all sounds individually, meaning to mute and unmute them. I can either do this here on the screen or in the left area, where I set control assigned to timbre trick and then turn it on and off using the mix, play and mute buttons. This works well as long as you only want to switch 2 or 3 sounds at the same time and know where they are, but this way I already have them all in one performance. Now I will save the whole thing. If I were to use even more sounds that also require effects, I would first go through all the effects again to see if I really need them. Here you can see, for example, that the lower one is no longer being used, but it still runs through. I have now removed it again. I would cut the effects a bit there. I will say something about the effects and the cutting in another video. That will follow. I actually haven't done that yet. I could also distribute a bit more, especially on the larger keyboards, like the 73 key and definitely the 88 key, for example. With the jump synth sound, one knows. I will probably just play a few melodies and a bit of solo. I never need the whole keyboard. So I could place it in the upper area. Do that now. For that, I press Enter and C6. And of course, I need to turn on the song as well. Now I only have it in the upper range. However, that is a bit too high. So let's lower it by 12 semitones. So, that's actually enough to solo. This means I could keep the sound on all the time, as long as the other sounds don't clash with it. Now I could just do one more thing, specifically. That I only stole the piano and the swell under MIDI filter 3. Since the solo sound above is now playing alone, I would also assign the swell to it. This means I only have 3 sounds left that run through the foot pedal. Now I will do the following. I am now going into my Karma function. I will turn off the run up here. I also showed this in another video on how to switch over via camera. I'm going to create 4 key zones now and design them to the switches. That was the wrong one. And switch 4. So now there is no sound coming at all, but of course sounds will still come because everything is still on channel 1. So now I have all the sounds back on, and I am going into the timbre parameters under MIDI. Now I can think about which sounds I want to combine and how. The synth sound above is independent, but I also need to assign it a MIDI channel. In my opinion, does not fit together is layering organ and strings. If I were to separate them now, I would say you can take both, but I didn't do that. This means I am now assigning channel 2 to the organ, for example, because I want to use the sound individually. Then I assign channel 3 to the piano and the E-piano, because I want to use them individually. And since I have enough left over now, I give it. I can also move the ignition separately from below. Strings and piano always go well together. So what can I do now? Now I turn on the camera function on the left, as seen in detail in the video. Then I set the first camera scene to channel 1, which means I now have piano and strings as layered sounds, and can control the strings with the volume pedal to fade in and out. That's already a good combination that can be useful. Then I would assign channel 2 to scene 2, which would be the organ. I assign channel 3 to scene 3, which is the piano, and I assign the synth to channel 4. So now I naturally have 4 more scenes that I can happily fill. What would be another good combination? For me, a good combination would be the organ and the synth at the same time. This means I would assign channel 2 and channel 4 to scene 5, and then I would have the organ. The volume would need to be adjusted. This is a useful combination for me. Since we still have 3 channels open, so 3 switches, I could also use piano, which is channel 1 and channel 4, along with the synth sound, like this. Because we still have something open, we will do the same again with the E-piano and the synth. And in the last one, we will do the piano strings, the E-piano, and the synth. And then we save the whole thing once. What have I done now? I have put together a jam performance, a jam combination with a total of 5 sounds. I can now access all standard sounds individually through my camera scenes. In camera scene 1, I have piano and strings. I can fade the strings in and out using the volume pedal. Camera scene 2, the organ. 3, the E-piano. 4, the synth alone, which is actually nonsense because you probably don't need the synth alone anyway. Above all, because it is limited upwards, so the scene could also be used in other ways. In scene 5, I have the organ and the synth. In scene 6, piano, strings, and the synth. And on 7, the piano, the E-piano, and the synth. And on 8, strings. Piano, E-piano, and the synth. And this way, you can easily create a combination where you can call up quite a few sounds simultaneously, and when you're jamming. This way, you also cover quite a lot. When deciding how to assign the keyboard, you need to consider whether it makes sense to just add the trigger up here, or if you should spread it a bit wider and perhaps include the strings as well. Each person has to decide for themselves.